Tonight at 11.
Doom!
Okay. So, this is our first podcast, and I have no idea what we're going to call this thing, but I'm sure we'll come up with something that seems clever.
Yeah.
Probably isn't.
Totally.
But, yeah, so we are going to talk about James Bond at 50, and we're going to do a spoiler-filled discussion of Skyfall.
Yep.
So, anyway, why don't you go ahead, Eric, and tell us about you a little bit.
Okay. My name is Erik Monson, and yeah,
That's all you
I'm a fan of James Bond movies and movies in general. I'm also a filmmaker, or a wannabe filmmaker, I should say. Yeah. That's about it.
Cool. Well, my name's Alex, and I am a fan of all kinds of crap. I don't know. I'm not a filmmaker, but I like film, and I enjoy the art of storytelling and kind of that kind of thing. So, we just decided with Skyfall and Bond at 50 that this would be a good place for us to start and to look at. So I guess the first thing we're going to do is talk about 50 years of James Bond and how we got into James Bond. So Eric's story is, I think, more interesting than mine. So
Okay, guess I'll go first. Well, I just, like a lot of people, I grew up watching a lot of old James Bonds. I grew up mostly watching the Connery era, so watched a lot of Thunderball, Goldfinger, and also had a couple Roger Moore movies here and there, but it was mostly Sean Connery. He was my first introduction to James Bond, and I've been a fan for basically my whole life.
Cool. So I think I got into Bond when we got an N64. That was my first exposure. So we got the bundle pack, that had GoldenEye with it, and
Very nice.
I think after playing the game, we wanted to watch the movie, and so we saw GoldenEye. I think at that point, I think Tomorrow Never Dies was out.
Yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies came out in 97, I think. And it's
Right.
the same time GoldenEye came out on the N64.
Okay, so it was a little while after. I don't
Yeah.
entirely remember, so...
Yeah, GoldenEye came out in 95, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right.
So yeah.
Yeah, so we watched that, and so probably Tomorrow Never Dies wasn't... Now I'm trying to remember when DVDs were out.
I would say around 99, because if I recall, I think episode 1 was at least in my recollection, was one of the first movies that ever came out on DVD. I'm probably totally wrong.
Because I remember they pushed on VHS for a while. I think even episode 2 came out on VHS.
Well, we don't remember, but
but I'm just trying to think how it might have been a little while before I saw Tomorrow Never Dies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back then there were still rental stores and everything, so
yeah,
which are dead now.
Yeah, they're dead.
So, we watched, I think probably GoldenEye, definitely, I'm sure, on VHS, possibly Tomorrow Never Dies. So I think the first Bond movie I saw in the theater was The World's Not Enough. So I saw older movies on TV every now and then, but I never really saw too many of them. So, my exposure to Bond is mostly Brosnan and then Daniel Craig era. So,
nice.
it's not as versed as as some people. I know my mom like saw, I think, most of the Connery ones. I'm not too sure about like the Moore ones or anything like that, but you know, for her, like when we talk about Bond, like Connery was Bond, you know, until Daniel Craig. So anyway, yeah, so that's my history with Bond mostly.
Nice.
So, and then of course the newer films.
Yeah.
So I guess there's 50 years of history. So what are some of your favorites?
Some of my favorites, I really liked Man with the Golden Gun growing up. I don't know if it just had to do with like that opening scene with Christopher Lee in his like messed up fun house where he'd, you know, have hitmen come to try and take him out because he's this like basically amazing hitman and people try and kill him, and of course he's like, oh, I can kill you with one shot with my golden gun and my golden bullets. Other ones, like I said, Connery was the one that I watched the most growing up. I mostly watched, it was mostly Connery, and there were a few Roger Moores. I remember the first time I saw, I think it was Spy Who Loved Me. I thought that was very interesting, having a giant, like, undersea, like, octopus base. I thought that was probably pretty. I thought that was pretty sweet back in the day.
Right.
And I don't think I was into Dalton very much.
Okay.
We had I think we had License to Kill taped off the TV. So I mean, from the Connery era, Goldfinger, that was always a fun one.
Sure.
The Aston Martin with the ejector seat, and Odd Job and his hat. Good old Odd Job and the throwing hat. It's
That's funny.
Awesome.
You know what's funny is I think most of my old James Bond knowledge comes from other sources. So, like, I know who, you know, from like parodies and whatnot. I know who like the characters are, but I'm not. Okay. You know. Probably a lot of it comes from Austin Powers.
Show them what you can do.
I saw a picture today of George Lazenby on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and he's got like that frilly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the pirate shirt or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it hit me that's what Austin Powers is dressed as. And
oh yeah.
So the first time
right.
I was like, oh, now I get it. You know.
Oh wow! I did not know that.
It was one of those things that just clicked. I was like, oh, that's where they got his suit from. Okay.
Okay. Nice.
So.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I mean, what I loved about Bond growing up was I loved the gadgets. I was a sucker for the gadgets. I thought having a car with machine guns and stuff was totally awesome, and well, I still do. But
traffic would be so much easier to get.
Yes, it would. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not joking.
Okay. I'm joking. Alex may not be, but let's see. Yeah, so in prepping for Skyfall and also for this podcast and just thinking about Bond over 50 years, I went back and watched a bunch of just old Bonds, a lot of them actually on VHS. For those of you who don't know what VHS is, it's a rectangle device that people used to insert into a thing called a VCR.
Google it.
Anyways, for Connery, I watched Thunderball. I was debating between From Russia with Love or Thunderball, and I decided I hadn't seen Thunderball for a real long time, and that one had kind of a pretty cool opening, I thought. Bond it opens up with Bond supposedly dying, and there's like a funeral service with his initials on a coffin and stuff. And there's a woman there, and she leaves, and she goes to the door, the car door. She just opens it up by herself, and then so Bond notices that, and he goes, I'm going to follow her. And he then runs into the woman, and just in typical Connery and Bond fashion, especially in that time period, was he just walks up and says, "Well, madam, allow me to express my condolences." He then promptly punches her in the face. And it turns out it was not a woman at all. It was actually...
It's a man, baby!
Exactly. It's a man dressed as a woman.
Okay. So, sorry to interject
go
here,
ahead.
but was it the same style as in Austin Powers, where it's first a woman, and then after punching, it really becomes a man?
Ooh. I am not sure, because she was in like a funeral like veil.
She was VCR. No. Okay.
Okay, so I'm not totally sure. But, and then, that is also the opening scene where he hops on a jetpack.
Oh, okay.
And he flies down out of this building. And, it was very interesting seeing that one. And that one was... I thought it was very interesting when he actually goes into the poker night with basically number 2, the eye patch wearing guy in that movie and also in Austin Powers.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting just watching some of the one-liners that he threw out, basically telling this guy, "Oh, I know that you work for Spectre, but I'm just going to pretend like I don't know." So he sits down and he's like, "Well, I guess it's your Spectre versus mine." And the guy's like, "I beg your pardon?" "Oh, the Spectre of Defeat." And he just goes on, and it's like, can you be that obvious, 007? Really? So that I thought was pretty interesting, and the underground, or not the underground, sorry, the underwater, the Thunderball thing is the whole, they steal a nuclear bomb from a plane, actually, and the whole, like, final fight between the U.S. Marines and Largo's henchman is just underwater, and it's pretty cool, because, back in the day, I'm sure that was pretty hard to film that type of stuff underwater.
Right.
And so that was with Connery. Then I jumped to Lazenby with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that, I saw it back when I was like 13 or 14, and
sure.
It's a slow Bond. It's very, very slow. The bad guy's plot doesn't make a ton of sense. It has to do with like hypnotizing these girls to release like a aerosol chemical into the air or something like that. I can't remember, but that one was interesting. I thought Lazenby was actually a pretty decent Bond. But it's always hard to he was after Connery.
Right, yeah. How do you step into that?
How do you step into that role? And I mean, he even makes fun of it, like
Right. This never happened to the other fellow, right?
Yeah. This never happened to the other fellow in the opening thing, and then also to go along with that, it's the only Bond that I've seen where previous Bond clips have played over through the opening sequence.
Oh, okay. So does it take the place of like the traditional credits or something?
They still were pretty traditional, but they had like shots from like Goldfinger and Thunderball and stuff like that, and I just thought that was really interesting.
So the way I understand, so there's like I guess a couple of different theories of thought on this. Like I guess this is their way of trying to say that yes, this is the same guy, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, because I guess there's been a couple of trains of thought where like people think, okay, so these guys look different, right? Between there was Connery, and then Lazenby, and then Moore and Dalton and Brosnan. So 5 guys.
Yeah.
5 guys. These 5 guys look different, but so I guess to kind of explain it, they say that James Bond and 007 are like a code. That's like a code name. It's not really any of their real names.
Okay.
So because I've heard about that with the opening credits, and I think that was kind of their way of trying to say that the Lazenby's Bond is the same as Connery's Bond.
Okay, I've never heard that, but that's interesting.
Right. I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of. I'm sure we'll get into how that
Yeah.
becomes convoluted here later, but yeah, that's just. I just wondered if it maybe gave any sense of that. So.
I don't know. I mean, from my standpoint, I thought it was just that he's the next guy, so
Sure.
we're gonna tie it. I have no idea.
Here's
but
the guy that you loved. Now here's the guy that you have to watch.
Yeah. But one thing, I did notice this a little bit also in Thunderball when I watched it, but I noticed it a ton in Majesty's Secret Service. There were a lot of fist fights. And in Majesty's Secret Service, whenever there was a fight, they sped up the film. And they kept jumping. They kept jump cuts, all the time. And it was really funny because you see him, he shoves a guy or punches him, and then the next clip is the guy hops up from off the floor, and it's like you didn't see him land on the floor in the first place. And they did a little bit in that opening scene in Thunderball. Bond kicks a chair, and it goes unnaturally fast into a doorway to block the guy's exit. But I thought Lazenby was decent. It also was the only Bond that he actually gets married in.
Right.
Yeah, he gets married in, and then she dies at the end. Spoilers.
This point.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because so the only Bond book I've actually read is From Russia with Love, but
Okay.
I've done some research into them, and I guess going back to that theory of how maybe these are all different guys with different code names. I guess there's at one point in a later novel, I think Bond thinks he's dying, and he's kind of out of it, and he is thinking he's going to heaven. And what's his wife's name in Secret Service?
Oh, I just saw this a week and a half ago.
I want to say it's Tracy, but I don't know if that's
yes,
right. Okay,
it is Tracy.
So I guess as he's going to heaven, I think it might be her, but he kind of has this crisis of I have to explain myself. I have to explain Tracy to Vesper or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And so it's kind of just one of those things too, where it kind of throws out that theory, there's a definite continuity that goes along with Bond and his women and all of that. Mm-hmm. That he definitely, I think it kind of was it kind of shoos out that theory that it's a code name, that this really is one person. And anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So.
Okay, so since you've read From Russia with Love,
okay.
I know it was probably a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but...
Okay, when you saw the film version, mm-hmm. how did it compare?
Okay, so I thought it was, from what I remembered, very, very faithful. I remember there was a lot of stuff I did remember. The one thing so you let me borrow that, mm-hmm. and it looked great on Blu-ray. That's for sure.
Good to know.
But the thing that I think the book, if I remember right, moves pretty quick. The movie felt slow, okay. and I think that's
it's probably just a sign of the times.
A sign of the times, yeah. There was a lot of
movies moved slower back then.
Right. Well, not just that. It was the
pacing.
The just the way the shots were done.
Okay. Yeah.
There's one part where Bond is talking to some people, and they're on I think a training range of some sorts.
Oh yeah.
And of some sorts. Let me speak English real good. There's a training range that they're on, and they as they're going along, it's like you start at point A, and as they walk, the camera just goes with them. There's no cutting or anything.
It's just one shot.
Just one continual,
yeah.
And it's not like if you watch they do seem like shots like that on House or something where mm-hmm. they're walking and they're talking, but the camera moves in a way that's pretty interesting. At least I think, but it's just like really they're just kind of just dragging along, and it just
okay.
So you've got a lot of exposition, and it just kind of feels longer by this camera that's not really doing anything, you know. So it was just kind of, and I think it is a sign of when it was filmed, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of I just thought kind of funny, but I thought that the story or the way that they filmed it was very true to the novel. I'm trying to remember. I think it ends the same way with him getting stabbed.
Okay.
Spoiler. Spoiler for a 45-year-old movie. But I there, you know, like there was a lot of times when I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen next, and I thought, and it did. It happened pretty much that way. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So I liked it. It wasn't, I thought, dynamic or anything. I know it ranks high on a lot of people's Bond lists, but maybe it's just because I've started Bond movies later, you know. I don't know. But I did think it was very faithful.
Yeah. So. Nice. And where was my train of thought going? Well, one thing, just going back to Majesty's Secret Service, for me, it was actually really kind of cool to rewatch that, because when they go to Blofeld's hideout, it's on a rotating restaurant, which he turns into his base.
That's awesome.
It's in Switzerland.
Okay.
And I actually had the opportunity to go to that restaurant,
cool.
like 12 years ago.
Okay.
It was pretty cool, and
That is cool.
I wore a 007 Tomorrow Never Dies hat on the way up, and my brother, when we were going up there, he's like, all the waiters are going to see Eric, and they're going to be like, oh no, Mr. Bond, no troubles this time, no troubles. But so that was kind of cool to re-see, you know, just Switzerland and stuff. Sure. That's cool, and that's cool with all the James Bonds, just seeing all the exotic locales and stuff. One thing, going back to the whole marriage thing with Tracy, is when I was watching it, I didn't get this when I was younger, but Tracy is the daughter of like a drug lord. And it's almost kind of like an arranged marriage type thing. Okay. Like, she despises Bond at the beginning. But then she starts to like him, and she eventually falls for him and stuff. Sure. And, but then, of course, at the end, it's now a classic in that genre that, you know, she ends up dying. So that was Lazenby, which I thought was interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Then came Moonraker.
So was Moonraker the first? It wasn't the first.
No.
Okay. But this is the one that you watched.
This is the one that I watched in prep for Skyfall.
So here's my understanding is Man with the Golden Gun is just a good movie, right? And that was his first one, right? Moore's first one.
Live and Let Die is.
Live and Let Die was okay.
Which I actually have never seen all the way up. I think that's his first one. Pretty sure it is.
But he had a better transition. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, people accepted him pretty well.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've seen any of like for me, I don't take Roger Moore Bond very seriously. And that's just because I think I've seen movies where it started getting progressively campier.
Yeah.
So I actually would like at some point to see something like The Man with the Golden Gun, just to see the more serious side of that.
The Man with the Golden Gun, it does have its campiness.
Sure.
But honestly, I just think it's fun to see Christopher Lee as a Bond villain.
Sure. No, he's perfect for it, really.
Yeah, it's awesome. But, side note on that, he actually knew Ian Fleming.
Oh, okay.
They worked together in, like, MI5.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. I did not know that.
That's what I think I read that or heard that somewhere, that he was in like the Secret Service, British Secret Service with Fleming when he was creating Bond and stuff. And another side note that I remember, just when Fleming was actually trying to come up with the Bond character, he was trying to think of just kind of an everyman name or whatever, and like he read an article or he met a guy who's like, "Oh, what's your name?" Like, "Oh, my name's James Bond." He's like, "That is the most blandest name I have ever heard in my life."
I think I've heard something along those lines before too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So Roger Moore. It's
Moonraker.
Moonraker, yes, Moonraker. That was, oh wow.
So that wasn't the next Bond movie that they planned on, evidently. What was the one after that? Like, You Only Live Twice or something like that?
Only Live Twice. That was another Connery one.
Oh, that was a Connery one.
That was one that I actually.
Don't kill me. Like I said, my older Bond history is not that great. So I don't remember what it was, but evidently, what year was Moonraker? 78, 79?
It was, somewhere around there.
Star Wars was huge.
Good point.
And they rushed Moonraker for that reason.
Oh, okay.
Was to try and get in on the whole
space
thing, yeah.
Okay.
Which may be why its reputation isn't so great.
Man.
Sorry, share your thoughts on that.
Oh, no, it's Moonraker. It's it definitely had a very 70s feel to it because if I remember correctly, he's in a facility and he's following this scientist. Scientist goes to a keypad. He enters in the numerical code. The tones that come off the keypad are, I believe, the exact same tones used in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The do-do-do-do-do. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly.
Funny. Wow.
But, yeah, that one was... The bad guy's plot was interesting in that. It was like... He's a space guru type guy, so...
Right.
His plan was to get all these select chosen, male and female people, but like, I don't know, let's say 100 people like that. Right. Perfect, blonde hair, blue-eyed, Some of them actually were.
Aryans in space.
Yeah. And he basically takes them up into this giant space station, and his plot is, I'm going to release this nerve toxin on the Earth, wipe out everybody else, and these people are going to come back down and repopulate basically. This is also the second... this is the film after Spy Who Loved Me, which first introduced Jaws.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So, he was... Jaws is an interesting minion guy. It's just, doesn't talk. He actually does talk in Moonraker, though, at the very end.
Right.
And a lot of people had issues with this, because he actually kind of turns good at the end. He actually helps James Bond at the very end of it.
Yeah.
And...
Okay, had to take a little break there.
Had a little break there. Sorry about that, but we're back. Let's see. Yeah, so Bond or Jaws helps Bond out, which a lot of people thought that was a real issue.
Kind of like a break of character type thing.
Yeah, it was a break of character, but it's because he's fallen in love with some little short blonde girl.
So I saw this on TV one time. So I mean, I came into knowing who Jaws was through GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And you kind of... I don't remember if I saw... what was the one that preceded this?
Spy Who Loved Me.
Spy Who Loved Me. I don't remember if I saw that one in its entirety or not, or parts of it. But I remember seeing Moonraker in part, particularly this, and I'm like, what in the freak is going on? This is just so weird. So, okay, yeah, so, and I remember just seeing that, thinking, that seems just really odd, so.
Yeah, it's, yeah, it was.
No dice.
Yeah, it was, but like, that wasn't the weirdest, it was really, really cheesy, because, just the whole entire movie, there were bits I was like, really? Okay, yeah, this is definitely a product of, the Moore era, because, like, he's on a gondola in Venice,
Right.
and some guys are trying to shoot him. He's trying to get away. He has a motorboat, a propeller system in the gondola. Okay, that's cool. He then starts heading towards land. He pushes a button. His gondola turns into a hovercraft. And just starts going along like that famous square in Vienna, just driving along, and people are getting out of his way, and it's like, really? Okay, that was one of the things. And then the typical, I'm going to. What is it with the Bond bad guys having their elaborate traps for Bond?
I have no idea.
I mean, in Moonraker specifically, the whole I'm going to put you in a conference room, which then turns into it actually opens up into the just below a exhaust port of a rocket that's about to go off. So I'm going to kill you that way,
Right.
which is just. Yeah, it was a while ago that I watched it, but I just remember when I watched it, I was like, really? This is really, 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 really cheesy. And then there's a space battle with lasers and...
Cue the Star Wars cash in.
Yes, exactly. So there was that. Then I watched not License to Kill.
Wait. Before we do that...
Yeah, go ahead.
Roger Moore went on way too long. He was Bond for way too long.
Yes, he was.
The last movie, the last one he did was the one with Walken, right? Of You Will Kill.
Yeah.
So I guess he was like 58 at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just like kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, that's really kind of creepy. The love interest was something like 20, like mid-20s. I mean, she was like a good 30 years his, junior.
Oh, wow.
So it's just kind of
wow.
one of those things where it's like, dude, should have let it go.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm guessing you're talking about The Living Daylights.
Yes, Living Daylights.
Okay.
The cello one.
Right.
Yeah. And that one was, I didn't watch License to Kill, but I really like Dalton. I think he is an awesome Bond.
Right.
He's the let's take it into be more gritty and make it serious again.
So we had been watching Chuck.
Yeah.
And Timothy Dalton came on, and he was around for about a season, and played a villain, kind of the opposite of Bond, Mm-hmm. And so that's when we decided, okay, well, let's check out one of his films. So we watched License to Kill. We got that for like super cheap on Amazon, and it just kind of knowing where the Bond films had gone in terms of Roger Moore. Watching that was like, and I guess even where they picked up with Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
It's surprising. It was really surprising to watch that.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it was 20 years too early.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And Dalton actually was slated for 3 films.
Right.
But
the third one was supposed to be like The Property of a Lady or something like that, I think.
Maybe. There was issues with MGM.
Yeah.
So when they got around, it was
he's
too late.
Signed off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the Dalton era films are. So I need to still see The Living Daylights, but License to Kill is.
Yeah. It's
go ahead with your thoughts on Living Daylights.
Living Daylights.
And then I'll jump into
It's
License to Kill.
Well, let's see. First off, Aha sings the theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much else to say on that. It's just, that one was pretty cool. I'm losing my train of thought. One thing I thought was awesome was, actually I think it was basically the final scene is, It takes place in a giant cargo plane.
Okay.
And he's fighting with the bad guy, and it's, he basically kicks this guy out of a cargo plane, and I'm like, or no, what he does is he's trapped, and the guy's holding on to him.
Okay.
So he whips out his knife and cuts his boot off, and the guy starts just flying, and it's just, it's like,
right.
Okay, that's pretty brutal.
This is a serious Bond.
This is a serious Bond. But yeah, again, I'm sorry I can't go into more detail. I'm racking my brain. I watched these movies like a month ago.
Sure.
So, but
when we were originally planning on doing this.
Yeah. But it's okay. Yeah, and then so there was that. Anything you want to add on?
So, License to Kill was the first PG-13.
Yes,
Bond
it was.
Movie. And it's kind of funny. So the difference between the Dalton PG-13 and the Brosnan PG-13 is Daltons are far more violent and Brosnans are far more sexual innuendo.
Yes, they are.
Because I was seriously surprised by how much blood there was. You know what I mean? Like there's a guy...
A guy gets his head exploded in a pressure tank or something in License to Kill.
There's something... Well, even like there's like a shark.
Yeah,
the
shark
attack,
scene.
And it's just like... Just brutal. It's just not what I was expecting. Particularly for... What was it, 1989?
Yeah.
So I mean, because what was the other big 1989 film? Batman.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some blood in that, but not anything that you maybe wouldn't expect to see today.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, License to Kill is ridiculously bloody. I think the guy at the end gets lit on fire.
Yes, he does.
Right.
He gets lit on fire because...
So you have immolation, shark attacks, and I think some guy it's either, he gets... I think there's a guy that gets shoved into like something that like grinds him.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it was instead of... I don't...
Well, no, one guy does get... Gets pressurized.
He gets brain explosion.
Brain explosion, yeah. Brain explosion.
But the other guy does get ground up, right? So... I think.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just,
yeah.
And it was just surprising by how much of that there really was. I thought, I don't know that they would get away with some of that stuff now because they've really toned down in a lot of ways that much violence in PG-13 movies, or at least that much bloody violence.
Yeah.
So it really was shocking, I thought, to see that and kind of see what they got away with. And I think people being so used to the Roger Moore kind of era, I can see why I think his films are met with more praise and respect today than they were then. Because, wow.
Yeah.
It's complete 180. And it's kind of funny because he's, I think, gone on record saying that, what they were trying to do then, kind of keeping in continuity of the time, but the tone that they were going for is more with what they've gone, with since Casino Royale. And, it shows.
Yeah, I mean, and Dalton, he said, I think he's like, look, I'm going to do this, but I wanted to go back to form. And he was...
Well, because they wanted him before, I think after Connery left the second time.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was 24 or something.
Oh,
He was
okay.
I'm way too young.
Yeah.
So, when he came up for time for, where he could do it, I think that was his stipulation, was we're done with... Not entirely done. I mean, there's still the kind of goofy jokes and stuff, but...
Yeah.
The ludicrous gadgets and...
The one-liner kills.
Right, yeah. A lot of that was that was his stipulation.
Case in point, in Living Daylights, after he loses his boot, the Bond girl asks him, "What happened?" "He got the boot." Yes, I'm just going on a quick tangent on the death one-liners. Oh, wow.
The IGN did a thing recently. Of
they did. They did. Electrocutes a guy. Shocking, positively shocking.
Yeah.
Thunderball, the bad chick gets shot instead of Bond because he flips her around at the last second and she takes the bullet for him and he leaves her off at this cafe. They're on a dance floor and she's like, would you mind if my girl just stays here for a while? She's possibly just dead.
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, I mean, yeah, there's just other ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're really cringeworthy.
Some of them are really cool, though,
Some
too.
of them are funny, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, GoldenEye, the ending line, harkening back to the beginning of the film, for England, James.
Right, no, for me.
Yeah, exactly, and it's, so there's that, but, what else? What else was there? Just the one-liners. Yeah, the one-liners. Oh, where was I going to go with this? I don't remember.
That's cool.
Okay.
So we're at about the 40-minute mark. So maybe we should just do favorite.
Yeah.
Brosnan one, and then
Craig
one.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Then we'll jump in. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble.
No, that's cool. So,
but okay.
So what's your favorite
Brosnan
one? There's really only two to choose from.
Well, I did see about 10 minutes of World Is Not Enough, or the last half hour of it, and yeah, it was okay, but it's nowhere near as bad as Die Another Day.
That was horrible.
GoldenEye, I loved that growing up. It was just awesome. I thought it was great. I unfortunately did not watch it prepping for Skyfall. I watched it like 6 months ago, and I honestly didn't think it hadn't aged well, but maybe I need to go back and rewatch it.
Speaking of aged well,
okay,
let's go to that clip.
Okay. So, product of the times right here for when GoldenEye came out. This is the scene. It's before the GoldenEye attack in Severnaya in Russia, and it's our first introduction to Boris when he's attempting to hack into the FBI, I believe. So, here we go.
My program seizes the phone line of whoever's tracing me and jams their modem so they can't hang up. Now the hunted becomes the hunter. Woo! Better luck next time. Slugheads. Bang! Gone! I am invincible! Was it good for you too?
I thought that scene was hilarious just because, GoldenEye came out in 95.
So the internet was kind of really just taking off.
Yeah, it was just really taking off. You still had dial-up. And
so, even say something about that, right?
Yeah.
Jams their modem so they can't hang up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my program will jam their phone line so they can't hang up. I'm just like, oh, that's such a product of the...
It's kind of funny, too, because, like, if you... because Batman Forever came out the same year, and when he goes up to the top of the police building and chases there, he's like, the bat signal is not a beeper,
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, that doesn't age well at all.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so it's maybe I need to go back and rewatch GoldenEye, but I think I saw previews for GoldenEye, but I think I never saw it in the theaters. I wanted to.
Okay, sure.
So again, my first exposure to it was, I think, the N64 game. So when I saw the movie, I'm like, oh man, they totally lifted these directly for the game. These locations are almost exactly the same. Anyways, but my first Bond experience was actually Tomorrow Never Dies in the theater. That was my very first theater experience of James Bond, and that's actually what I watched for this. And again, the same thing with Bond totally speaking face-to-face with the bad guy, and totally, because the bad guy's plot is he sinks
he's trying to start World War III, basically, right?
Yeah, through the use of media.
Right.
Which is actually kind of cool.
Sure,
Pretty cool villainous plot.
Right.
But, same thing with the one-liner things. He sinks a British ship at the beginning.
Right.
And Bond walks up to him and he's talking about this party, and he's like, "Oh, well, why don't you join me for later?" He's like, "Oh, well, I'd be lost at sea, adrift." Really? I don't know why that's kind of irking me right now, but I just think it's silly.
Right, sure.
But that one, Brosnan, a lot more action.
Sure.
It's, like you said, a lot more sexual innuendo.
Especially when you start getting into Die Another Day.
Oh, jeez. We won't talk about that on this.
The less said of the better.
Yeah.
If you've never seen it, don't waste your time. No. Watch it, see how bad it was, then watch Casino Royale and be grateful that it happened, because then we got Casino Royale. So.
Yeah.
No, I have a hard time, I think, thinking about which one I think is better, honestly. Just because I really liked GoldenEye. I thought that was really well. But Tomorrow Never Dies, I thought was really fun. And thinking about it, sure, I'm sure that it hasn't exactly dated entirely well.
They'll print anything these days.
Right, and I don't remember how much the internet played into that. I think a lot of it was focused more on cable.
Yeah, it was satellites.
Sure. If they were to redo a movie for now, that might be really interesting, considering how media is distributed. It kind of would. The concept of it is still something that I think is pretty relevant to today. So anyway, that's just.
It's I thought it was interesting. It was also interesting to see the main bad guy. He's been in a lot of British I think television shows and movies when he was younger.
Right.
But it was even they throw a Star Wars thing in there at the.
Do they?
Yeah, he when he's typing up his headlines, and he's about this crisis between China and Britain, and he's like, "Oh, and I rather am fond of this last one. It's not even mine." And the title of the headline is "The Empire will strike back."
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so fun fact, I think, is the Daniel Craig GoldenEye game remake.
Yes.
Actually does a really good job of updating that, I thought.
Yes, it does. I thought it did a very good job.
The stuff that wouldn't hold up today in the movie, they totally make work. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Daniel Craig.
Yeah. Good old Daniel Craig. And for Daniel Craig, I rewatched Casino Royale.
Right.
Yeah.
What better place to start?
Exactly. Yeah, that is, and a lot of people, didn't like this. Oh, where are the gadgets? Where's all this stuff? But
Sure.
It's the Bond for the new century.
Well, it makes sense though to keep it simple.
Keep it
I
simple,
think.
yeah.
It's the start of his career, and from what I understand, I've not read the book, but from what I understand is it's ridiculously faithful. Outside of modernizing it.
Okay.
The basic plot, I guess, is up to the point of Vesper's death.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then they go on a little bit from there. They've added to it, but the crux of it, I guess, is quite faithful. So I thought that was pretty cool. So
that opening to that movie was just it's like, this is not the Bond you grew up with. Right.
So I remember
black and white and gritty.
Yeah.
And very violent.
I just remember sitting. So I was sitting in the theater watching that, and so up to this point, my exposure was the 4 Brosnan films.
Yeah.
And a couple of older ones.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there in the theater and watching it, enjoying it, you know, kind of at that midpoint, and there's the scene where they're listening in on Lashif with the I don't remember what their names are, but they're like the African guys,
African terrorist guys.
Terrorist guys, yeah, and they've just threatened to cut off his girlfriend's arm and all that, and so they walk down the hall and Bond and Vesper are making out to throw him off, and they see his earpiece, and it's just straight action. They know he's been spying, and it goes into the stairwell, and you have that whole fight scene down. I don't know how many flights.
Awesome.
Right, it's awesome, and then at the Bond has to strangle the guy, and then he stands up, and he's just covered in blood, and I was like, this is a totally different kind of Bond movie. Because up to that point, I don't think I'd ever seen a Bond movie like that. He always comes out, just as clean as he went into the fight,
Mm-hmm.
And this was a Bond that you see get the crap kicked out of him, and still comes back fight. I thought that scene. I just remember sitting in the theater and just being sold on everything that happened after that.
Nice.
So,
and one thing I thought just on that same scene, that's also a real eye opener for Vesper.
Sure.
Because she's staring at him and he's just strangling this guy.
Right. Well, it's kind of interesting too because if you think, I think she has a concept of what he is.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she sees him. Basically, he's protecting her too.
Yeah.
And I think she sees what he has to go through and put on the line. It's kind of interesting. So.
Yeah. And that, the way they ended that movie, they didn't do the classic tune until the very end.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Well, so the interesting thing, and this will tie into Skyfall. So at this time, there are two reboots, I think, that really, successfully do it. And that's Batman Begins and Casino Royale. And a lot of movies since are just kind of imitators.
Yeah.
There's no way either of them could have known what the other was doing at the time. I don't think there's any way that anybody knew that both reboots would be so successful. But it was kind of the same with... there was a complaint that they didn't do the new Batman theme until the end credits. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Zimmer and Howard that did the score for Begins, and they said, I think it was them, or it could have been.
No, it was Zimmer and.
Was it James Newton Howard?
Yes. Yeah.
But it was either one of them or Christopher Nolan said, well, there's a good reason you didn't hear the Batman theme until the end. Batman's just begun.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Casino Royale, really. You don't hear it until the end because now James Bond has begun, you know. And it's kind of like just one of those cool... because the Casino Royale is how it's his starting point. Right.
Where he goes,
shouldn't be the Bond that you know until the end of
until the very end.
So, it's I thought pretty clever, so...
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So what did you think, since this is kind of going to go right into Skyfall after, what did you think of Quantum? Because it's kind of a divisive topic for people. A lot of people... It seems like a lot of people just didn't like it. And I think one of the reasons I've heard is it took James Bond and made him into Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I unfortunately have not seen Quantum since you let me borrow it that one time. But just going off of memory, it was. I thought it was good, but I think it wasn't great. Now since I've seen Casino Royale again,
Mm-hmm.
I know what happens in Quantum. Mm-hmm. I think if I went back and rewatched Quantum, I probably would like it a lot more.
Okay.
I mean, it's the first Bond that is a direct sequel.
Right. It's like a true sequel to...
And you can't really watch one without the other.
Sure.
So, I mean, at the time, though, I thought it was good. I did like the callback to Goldfinger with the woman covered in oil instead of gold paint. I thought that was pretty cool.
Sure.
But Yeah, it's like I said, I'm going off of memory here, but it's I thought it was okay, but it just was not Casino Royale.
Sure. No, I can agree with that. I think, see, I don't have a problem with it, I think, like a lot of people do. And I think it's because I remember them saying it's a revenge film. And if you think of it being, in terms of continuity, Quantum happens right after Casino Royale. Like literally, right?
Yep.
So in the real world, we've had 2-3 years to separate it, but for him,
It's been 5 minutes.
yeah, it's been, but by the time you're at the end of the movie, it's maybe been a few days,
Yeah.
He's pretty angry with what's happened. Thinking of it in terms of continuity, I think the tone of it and all of that makes a lot of sense. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and see it. Maybe I'll enjoy it more. I did think it was cool though how, I mean, it sucks for Vesper, but when you find out at the end of Quantum that her boyfriend was not dead, he actually is a quantum agent.
Right. Well, there's a lot of, I think, redemption for her because you know at the end of Casino, he's gone from the one woman that he's loved.
Yeah.
He kind of despises, and I think in the end he sees what she went through. So I think I like that there's some redemption for her and all of that. So
okay. Well, I think with that we'll get on to Skyfall.
Okay, so if you haven't watched Skyfall yet and plan to, I would say if you don't want spoilers, like for real, since this movie's been out. 4 days at the time that we've recorded this?
Yes.
Just skip from here. So
yeah, stop playing now.
Watch it, then come back.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about this yet.
No, we haven't.
In full, just little bits. So I guess what I was thinking is let's go over what we liked first.
Okay.
So, what did you like?
I liked. We'll go into this later, but I really liked the third act.
Okay.
I liked seeing the return of the Goldfinger Austin Martin. That was cool. That was really cool, and I also enjoyed. The locations were cool. I thought the part in Shanghai, I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool.
Right.
That was a pretty cool part. And there were just little subtle throwbacks. They're in the pit with the Gila monsters. I'm like, okay, that's classic Bond right there. But yeah, for me, the final third act was awesome, and I thought, we'll go more into details in it, but the ending was just, I thought it was a really cool just throwback to the classic Bond.
Cool. So the things that I liked, the casting was phenomenal, I thought.
Yes.
I don't have a single complaint. I love that Voldemort is now M. That is the cool... And like, I think we were tweeting back and forth today a little bit, but... Or maybe it was yesterday.
Might have been yesterday, yeah.
If there's one thing I want them to do in future Bonds with Ralph, is it Ralph Fiennes?
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes.
I want him to address somebody named Harry or Mr. Potter. I just want to hear it. Because when you look at him, like, if you know it's him, you can totally see it. If you don't, though...
Yeah.
Because he looks different enough with hair and a nose, So it's just one of those things where it's like, if you know it's him, it would just be brilliant to hear.
That would be awesome.
I like the new Moneypenny,
and
I like that. I liked how she actually had a part to play other than just being the secretary.
Yeah.
You actually got to see her in action. And I think actually it would be cool if they took her back out in the field. Maybe not in the next film, but in the third one.
Yeah.
Just for, something here or there. Knowing that she has that field experience, I think is is kind of cool. It's just something different.
Yeah, it's cool and it's different.
And what else? It's sad to see Judi Dench go, but that's a good way to go.
Yeah, good way to go.
And she's done well throughout all 7 films she's been in. So, what else? I particularly like the way the film was shot.
Yes, it was shot beautifully.
When you go into Shanghai, that was just beautiful cinematography. I seriously just got soaked into that. I liked the silhouette fight scene in Shanghai. In front of the window.
Yes.
That was just pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
It was a little Bourne-ish in the sense of, like, sometimes you couldn't tell who was who, but...
Yeah, the fact that they were backlit by, like, fluorescent light. Yeah, I loved that whole entire scene.
Right.
Them just,
So, I mean, other than maybe not knowing who was who from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a minor complaint. The rest of it, though, I thought just was fantastic, so... I
loved the bad guy's original hideout. Being in an abandoned city.
And I actually saw online today where there was actually some real life inspiration for that in Japan. Of a little island that kind of was just abandoned.
Huh.
So
cool.
It was kind of cool, I thought. So
yeah, I thought the casting was great.
Silva was a really creepy villain.
He was creepy.
And the time when he took the fake teeth out, that was gruesome.
That was gruesome, yeah.
Totally did not see that coming.
Yeah.
So and I'm guessing it was CG, but when he took those out and the way his like cheeks sunk in and everything, that it just added to the creepy factor.
The creep factor.
I bought his whole revenge plot.
Yeah.
That was really well done. I like that his motivations weren't, take over the world. And really, I don't think that any of the Craig villains have been your stereotypical
Bond villain.
No,
they haven't been.
In that sense. In fact, if anything, he's kind of more like Trevelyan in a sense. Where, his was a little more... He
wanted revenge against M.
Right. I mean, Trevelyan's was a little more elaborate in...
Yeah.
Or I guess...
He also wanted money, too.
Yeah, it was more grand, but the sense of betrayal and everything made a lot of sense. But...
But...
That's what leads me to my problems with the film. So... So when I read that Silva, in particular... so I read that they were influenced by The Dark Knight.
Okay.
I thought, there's no way that can be bad. I love The Dark Knight. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Silva was compared to the Joker in early reviews that I read. No way that can be bad. And honestly, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought he was charismatic, and when he's on screen, you honestly don't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
In that sense, fantastic. I'm going to guess that he's a big fan of The Dark Knight. Because, holy cow, his plan's the exact same thing. And that's where I have my problem. He gets captured on his own free will. Because that's part of the plan. He escapes. It drives me crazy. The more I think about it, the whole second act just it blows it for me. Because his plan is the exact same thing as the Joker's in so many ways, and it drives me crazy.
Hey, he didn't have a cell phone in a guy's stomach, though.
Yeah, that may have been the one thing that was
that was not there.
It wasn't there. I just don't know. I mean, he escapes and plans for him to... The thing that bugged me, too, was somebody says he wanted to be caught. He planned it. Gordon said the exact same thing!
Yeah, Gordon did say the exact same thing.
And then there's the chase. Of course, we didn't really see a lot of that chase in The Dark Knight.
No.
But then he dresses up as a cop
Oh yeah.
to kill an authority figure. I mean, it was like one thing after another. I was like, it's the second act of The Dark Knight, you know, and okay. Going to your, I'm sure you have comments on this.
We'll get to that. But like, for me, some of the things I didn't like is like, okay, the movie just starts after the MGM logo. It just starts. There is no classic, white circle across the, no theme song, no, I'm going to shoot the guys through the sights. It just starts. I thought the pacing was really slow. You don't even meet Silva until I think an hour into the film.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too.
That was a little weird.
I didn't have a problem with the start. I thought that was kind of just a way to just, okay, you're in the middle of it, let's go. I thought that was okay. I didn't have a problem with that, but I can understand.
I'm like, it's like, okay, yeah. So that was one of my issues, but yeah, when I read before you saw the Dark Knight, you saw.
The second act was The Dark Knight.
Yeah. You saw Skyfall before I did, and I was reading some of your tweets, and
sorry,
it's
my angry tweets.
Yeah, your angry tweets, and I was like, oh nuts! I hope I don't become jaded to this film, because like everyone else that I've read online has been like, oh, this is amazing.
Sure.
And so when people were mentioning, oh, he's like the Joker. Okay. Unintentionally, I started slightly cracking up to myself in the theater when he first appears on screen.
Okay.
Because he says, look at this wonderful island. It's totally deserted. My mother used to own an island. It was just a small little island. And,
right.
But I was like, oh gosh, why did I get that comparison in my head? Because it wasn't meant to be funny, but I was just like, oh man, that's funny. Yeah, with the second act, it's okay. The whole I'm in a glass prison. Okay. That's been done before. It was done by a guy named Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. And so, and he, so Silva's there and he takes his teeth out and, I just because of what the scene was like, I just seriously wanted to imagine him being like, did you, yeah, it'd be like, do you have any, it'd just be like, do you have any idea what cyanide does to burns the inside of a person's mouth? Now, if it's not too much trouble, I'd like some fava beans and a nice Chianti. It's just, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was cool, but yeah, the whole, Q's like, I
invented
this thing, and, he let him in.
Right.
There's a schematic, this code leads to a schematic of the, London Underground.
Right.
And, he totally lets him in and, just plays Q for a fool. And they just... Yeah.
Well, it's Harvey and Rachel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a twist on it. But yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Oh, by the way, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't play out the same way that his escape and his assassination attempt do.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, the whole he wanted to be caught, and the whole getting caught, it was part of my plan,
Right,
it's like it just it kind of fell apart for me there.
Well, that was the same thing for me. I liked the first act. Even though, it wasn't until an hour that we met Silva or so. But, and then we have this whole second act that just... And I think the problem, too, is The Dark Knight is still very much on the public conscious.
Oh yeah.
Especially with The Dark Knight Rises coming out this year.
Yeah.
You know, so you can't get around that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you went and saw The Dark Knight again in a screening.
Yep.
You know, a trilogy screening. So, and how many countless other people watched it at home, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like people probably haven't seen it this year. Just alone, you know? So it just was, it's kind of irritating to hear, oh, we were really influenced by The Dark Knight. Okay, you know, thematically and in what you want to do is one thing, but when you lift it, that's an entirely different thing, you know? So for me, even though I liked the third act, and there was a lot of cool stuff that goes on in there.
Yeah.
I was so taken out of the movie at that point that I didn't feel like I was immersed in what I was watching. Mm-hmm. I just felt like, okay, I'm already along for the ride, so I guess I might as well finish it. You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it started actually kind of picking up for me because I mean it's, you know, Silva is a cyber terrorist in this.
Sure.
You know, which so the third act kind of re-picked itself up because they ditch the technology. They hop in the old school Aston Martin, and
right.
I'm like, if you're under attack by a cyber terrorist, you should have ditched your tech, like after MI6 blows up.
Right.
You know, it's like, I don't know. Like I thought, that part I thought was actually really hilarious. They're driving along with 007 and M are driving along, and she's talking to him, and then he flips up the gear shifter, and there's the red button. The ejection seat. I laughed out so hard during that because I knew what it was referencing.
Right.
And, you know, they did make reference to it like a second later. But,
Sure.
You know, it's just like, I laughed out.
Well, but the funny thing is, like, because for me, like, I mean, you know, that's his car or whatever.
Yeah.
But even not really having seen Goldfinger, like, it's kind of one of those things where, like, you know, even if you've not seen it, you know what it is. So, when he flipped that open, I was like, oh, ejector seat. you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a great callback. And, you know, and I liked it when he's in the house and the whole house is burning down around him. Mm-hmm. But they blow up his car.
Yeah.
And you see the look on his face, and he's like, the house is burning down around him, doesn't care. The car goes, and he's just like, no, you did not just blow up my car, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's... So I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more if it would have been like, we're under attack by cyber terrorists.
Sure.
Let's ditch our technology and go old school. Let's go analog. You know, like,
and oh,
I thought it would have made for a more interesting.
I
story.
can see where you're coming from with that. I think I would have been able to enjoy it if I felt like the movie was wearing its influence of The Dark Knight, rather than just taking it and putting Bond in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It killed it for me. And the thing that's and I've had people, you know, say, well, are you sure you weren't just like overhyped for it? It's like, no, I wasn't overhyped. The fact remains, they took stuff from The Dark Knight and wrote it into Bond. You know, so yeah. And the thing that sucks though was I was really excited for this movie.
Yeah,
like after Rises, this was the movie I was looking forward to. You know,
same.
And it really was a huge disappointment to just be like, and it's not like this, because like I don't think that Rises necessarily lived up to my expectations, which maybe that's my fault. They were gigantically bloated.
Yes, they
were. But you know what I mean? Like I didn't like leave. I still think about that movie and contemplate it and go over it, and I don't know. It is that whole second act just felt like lazy writing. That's the thing that I've come to saying is the way that they just took what another movie did that is 4 years old and still has, you know, so much clout.
Yeah.
you know, it's not like maybe if they did it 20 years from now, you know, it would be one thing. But just to take it
too soon.
Yeah, too soon. You know, it was such a mood killer. It just, I don't know, and I'm surprised that more people hadn't picked up on that. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know. It was disappointing. It was just disappointing, and that's the thing I think that makes the difference between my feelings towards Rises and this is for Rises I had to come to accept the fact that okay, this is Christopher Nolan's version of Batman rather than this is the definitive version of Batman that will, you know, define the character for all ages. Yeah. And you know, when I look at it, and we'll talk about that later, but you know, when I look at it in that respect, I don't go, oh man, I'm disappointed. You know. Yeah. But I don't know. Just the more I think about Skyfall, the more I think, man, I'm just disappointed. You know. Yeah. I'm super, super excited for where it can go from here. Mm-hmm. Like we were saying before, you know, the new M, Moneypenny.
The old Office.
Yeah, the old Office. I thought that was cool. You know, I really liked Q. Yeah. Same. I have no complaints as far as casting goes and where it can go from here. Totally just I'm all for it. But
yeah, my opinion was I was entertained by this. Mm-hmm. I thought it was good, not great. Sure. Honestly, it might have been maybe My World Is Not Enough of the Craig era. Sure. You know, like it's
just without Denise Richards.
Yeah. No.
For better or worse. No.
Yes. No. But yeah. It's okay. Like I enjoyed it. So I mean, maybe people's opinions. A lot of people love this movie. Right. A lot of people don't like it. But it's like, I thought it was entertaining. Mm-hmm. Would I buy it?
That's the same boat I'm in. I just don't know.
I don't know if I would.
And the thing is, I would, as divided as people are on Quantum, I would watch Quantum again over it. Hmm.
I'd have to think about that. No, just kidding. No.
Well, you know what I mean, though. Like,
yeah. No, I know what you mean.
I'll watch Casino Royale any day. Yeah. You know, and if it was like, oh, let's watch a different Bond movie, I would just say, okay, throw in Quantum. I'd throw in Quantum over it. Yeah, it's maybe I'll have to Redbox it when it comes out. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean. I don't think I'll go to the theater again to see it. Yeah. But
yeah. Last night, I overheard. I was at a party, and this guy was actually mentioning that I overheard him say, like, "Okay, have you seen Skyfall?" And this person's like, "No, I haven't." He's like, "Well, okay, see it twice if you're gonna see it, okay? Because you need to let it sink in or whatever." And it's like, I lost track of where the guy was because I wanted to talk to him about it, but I don't know. Yeah, like this Bond, it was good. It wasn't great, though. But then again, you know, in rewatching a lot of my old Bonds, you know, just in prepping for this, I was like, you know, a lot of these, I was looking through a nostalgia lens, you know. Sure. It's like, they're good. Not great. Sure. Please don't flame me.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I'm more excited. The thing is, I'm more excited for where it can go. Yeah. Than you know.
What happened in the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same. Like, and I thought it was cool, you know, like just the ending, you know, I thought even the callback of, you know, James Bond will be back. Sure, you know, I'm like, okay, that's cool. You don't have the next title, but that's how they did them back in the day. Sure. You know, James Bond will be back in Thunderball, you know, or whatever. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I was entertained, but I don't think I would buy it.
Yeah. There's our review.
Yeah, there's our review.
You know, if people want to see it based off of this, I would say, hey, that's great, but tell me if you catch the same things I caught, you know?
Yeah, like the whole dressing up as a policeman thing, that flew over my head until you mentioned it.
Well, and the thing that just kicked that, it was just like, I mean, it's fair enough. That's a good way to, I guess, disguise yourself.
Yeah.
It hit me right when I saw it. I was like, okay, because already I was thinking of the Joker's plan, and then I was like, okay, so he's gonna dress up as a cop too. Now he's gonna go try to assassinate an authority figure. It's like,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we are at an hour and 20 minutes.
Awesome. Okay.
So yeah, well, anyway, hopefully everybody enjoyed our first podcast.
Very first podcast.
Podcast. I'm sure we'll fine tune things. But yes, I think we were talking about it earlier. The next month, The Dark Knight Rises comes out on Blu-ray and DVD. So I think we're gonna do Dark Knight trilogy.
Mm-hmm. And also maybe do a little same thing, maybe a little history of
Sure. Yeah, talk
Batman.
about the older Batman movies. Get ready for some Batman and Robin bashing. That's anyway.
Man.
So anyway, thanks for listening, and
Catch you next time.
Catch you next time. Thanks.
But inconspicuously, through the window.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.